Welcome everyone, and welcome Erasmus for this new episode of Thoughts Worth Sharing podcast. I'm very happy to have you on this podcast. Thank you for accepting my invitation. So I'm going to give some information about you. You are a film and games composer, as well as a sound designer, and you are based in Stockholm, in Sweden. And you are part of the team of the company called Monumental Wave. How are you doing in Stockholm, Erasmus?
First of all, hello, and it's great to be part of your podcast. And everything you said is correct. I'm indeed a film and games composer. Currently, actually, I'm sitting here in my flat in Gotland, on Gotland, which is a small island just south of Stockholm. I am currently doing a music course because I decided last year that I wanted to go back to school for a while and just try some new things and get some new inspiration. So I've been on Gotland doing that, but I'm almost done now in about a month's time. Yes, and I'm doing well, thanks. It's been a strange year, of course, for for all of us. But my career is going nicely. I'm kind of lucky in that I'm being in Sweden, which hasn't locked down that much. So I still had a lot of opportunities to meet friends and hang out and do all sorts of different things. Bars and restaurants are still open here till about 8 o'clock in the evening. So relatively speaking, I feel quite lucky. And with the summer coming now, I think things are gonna get even better. So I'm good. Yes.
Okay, I think in Sweden the COVID impact was a little bit lower, I think, than in the other countries, and also the lockdowns maybe were not as harsh, as difficult maybe than in the other countries. And so you decided to take courses because you wanted to learn a little bit more about music. For how many years have you been doing this or months? I don't know, this new study.
I've been taken a course here in I would say classical music composition, and I've been doing it since last September. And usually this is a 2-year course, but I'm fast tracking it and so I'm trying to complete it in 1 year. And next year, I'm actually going to continue studying at the Royal College of Music in Stockholm. I'm going to do the master's in film music there. And this course was the one I'm doing right now was essentially a preparation course for this master's. To refresh my memory as well about a lot of things that I've kind of forgotten, but also just to get inspired by other composers that are also on the course, and also just being introduced to composers that I didn't know before. So that's a big aspect of it. And then also the other aspect is for making contacts, of course, as well. It's a great way to meet other composers. And in the master's program I'm doing, I'm also going to meet a lot of filmmakers. So that's the other reason for doing this.
I completely understand, because knowledge, I think, is kind of easily accessible now with the internet. But when you do courses like what you do now, is a great way to meet people in the same field as you, and you can also learn a lot with these contacts and with the people that you meet. And regarding music composition, you always thought that this is what you wanted to do, or how did it happen regarding the career that you chose? You were always passionate about music, or there were also other things that you liked growing up?
Yes, I was always passionate about music, and it was definitely something that I would have liked to do as a child, but I initially took it a completely different way because I was scared. I wasn't sure I was really good enough to make a career as a musician, and also, yeah, it seemed like a very uncertain career. I didn't know necessarily if I would, would be successful, how to make money from it. And I don't come up from a particular musical family, so it's also not something that was greatly encouraged, I would say, in my family in general. I mean, my mother wasn't against it, let's say, but she preferred me doing something else. So my first degree was actually computer science. So I studied computers, and I was trying to get a job as a programmer. So it was quite different.
I don't hear you always. I think the internet connection in the island maybe it's a little bit less strong than in the mainland maybe.
Could be.
Now it's better. Now it's better. I think maybe you can. I don't know if you can close. Maybe I don't know if you have other things.
I can tell you what. Let me try the. Let's see if that's better. Ooh.
Also the video can also slow or cut. Okay, I think it's better now. If you have maybe closed, if you have other things, it can help maybe.
Yeah, nothing else going on, so that should be.
Okay, perfect. I think now it's better. Hopefully which will stay like this. Hopefully.
Okay.
So you did, yeah. Yeah, go on, please. No, okay. Go on.
Okay. So I was saying that yes, there was definitely times in my life where I considered the possibility of working as a composer, and especially as a film composer. And I certainly was excited about that idea, but I was pretty scared to really go for that due to the uncertainty that I would be able to make a living. It's a very competitive industry, and yeah, also I wasn't sure how good I was really, if I was good enough to enter this competitive world. So my first plan was to become a computer scientist, to become a programmer or something like that. So I studied computer science, did a whole degree, then started working for IBM, and then after about 6 months, I just realized I can't do this. It's just not fun. I realized that I have to do something that I think is fun and creatively challenging, because I just felt so depressed and empty otherwise. So I then decided to study music, and my first and that was really my first proper musical education. I always had music as a passion, and I played some piano, and I played in bands and so on, but I was never really serious about it. But then, basically in my mid-20s, I started becoming more serious and at this degree, and I really tried to learn how to compose, and I was awful for a long time, but then gradually started getting better. And then I got a job at Disney, making sound effects for computer games. And I got the job straight away out of university. And eventually, I really enjoyed that as well. It was obviously related to music, to sound. And then eventually I also started then making some music for them, because I was passionate and I just wanted to try it. And they had on occasion opportunities where I stepped in and said, hey, I can make some music here. And then gradually took on more and more of those tasks and did more and more music for them. And then eventually, the company that I worked for, which was part of Disney, they then went down. They shut the doors, and I decided to do this freelance because I had made a couple of contacts while there, and I thought, okay, maybe I can, try to work in this. And that's how it started. And it was a very slow start. It was very difficult at the beginning to find people to work for and find jobs. But soon, once you get the ball rolling, once you create momentum and people, use you again, and then you make more contacts, that I gradually, got more and more jobs. And yeah, I went from there.
Okay. You started directly with jobs after deciding to quit the computer science job that you had, or you studied at the same time? Because you talked about the job that you had with Disney. Did you like study at the same time at the university, or you just started to learn on your own on the internet and also trying to get opportunities and jobs on your own? Is that what happened?
I did so I was studying music after this, so I quit my job as a programmer basically, started studying music, and then in the summer I was looking for an internship because I wanted to kind of get some work experience, and that's when I made contact with Disney, and so I did an unpaid internship for I don't know, a couple of months I think, and based on that I got hired then when I was done with my university. I was very lucky, actually. It's very hard to get that first job usually, and I think, yeah, I really recommend people doing internships to get a foot into the door and make sure that people know you, and so that's how it happens.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you, because music, when you do music, it can be very broad. You wanted to be a film composer and games composer, or you thought maybe doing other things to be a full-time musician on a band, or to be a musician in another context maybe, because it can be very broad. I think when you want to work in the field of music, there are many things that you can do. You had you really liked movies, etc. This is why you wanted to go more into film composition.
Yes, so I discovered a lot of music through films, and that's made me very passionate about film music as well. I mean, classic examples like, I mean, Star Wars was a big influence that really had a massive impact on me and the music then, and particularly, I mean, anything John Williams did, I think I've really appreciated and inspired me. And other films as well. Blade Runner, I remember that also had a big impact in terms of the music. So yes, I was always very aware of film music, but I think I was probably when I was younger, I think I was probably even more passionate about games and game music. Yeah, I also discovered a lot of great music in games, by playing them, and so the idea of making music for games or films was something I kind of had very early onwards. But as said, like I was never really serious about it. I just kind of thought, oh, that could be really fun, but I never saw it as a serious career. Yeah, but then it came back later in life, I guess.
Okay. And you are not originally from Sweden. You came from Sweden a few years ago. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. I'm originally from the UK.
Okay.
So I was born in Wales, grew up in England, but also lived in Germany for a while, hence the strange accent. But yeah, and I moved to Sweden 10 years ago, and that was because I got a job with a Swedish games company, doing mostly sound effects, but also I helped a little bit with the with some music things as well.
Okay, so yeah, you didn't really find maybe an interesting opportunity in UK, and you didn't hesitate if there was an opportunity in Sweden, so you went there directly, and it's quite easy to move in Europe and to work in another country in Europe. Huh?
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's that, but also I was genuinely interested about in Sweden. I came here before on holiday and met some people, and I really liked I really like the
nature maybe,
and the nature, exactly. It seems like a nice something like a nice country to live. So I was a little bit fed up with the UK at that time as well, especially where I was living. I was living in Brighton, in the south of England, and which is it's a very fun place, but after a while this feels a little small and not serious. So I felt like it was time to step out of that bubble. So that was also an important aspect. But yes, of course, the job sounded good as well, and I also wanted to try working for that company.
Okay. How do you maybe find the strength when you start in a business that can be very competitive, in a business that's very uncertain? What is the mentality that you think you need to have if you want to do something that is kind of unusual, that is not something that many people do after graduating from high school or from college? What advice maybe you can give to people that want to follow their passion, but at the beginning it can be very difficult? What did you do? How was it for you? You said it was hard, I guess, as like many people that start in a field with a very competitive field.
Yes, I mean,
reading self-help book, maybe it can help, because I really believe in like having the mentality, the mindset in order to achieve success. And I think that it should basically be taught in school, how to be resilient, how to have courage in a sense, and not to fall into negative thoughts, etc.
Absolutely, yes. It's very important to be resilient, to be able to deal with failure or be with rejection. For every yes, there's a many no's on the way, and it can be very frustrating. And it's very easy to, if you're not resilient against failure and against maybe not always not letting the job, you're not going to make it, because especially at the beginning, it is very tough to get in. It gets better and better usually with time. But at the beginning, you got to be very resilient. You got to hit the wall and get yourself up and then running against it again. And I think that's something that helped me. I was very resilient, I think, for quite a time. And I worked very hard in the beginning, and sometimes without any success, working very hard, making tracks, trying to get them into a game, for example, and spending hours working long days, even after my regular job, and just I was so motivated at some level, and that's really important. So to work hard, but also be resilient and be okay with maybe not getting results straight away. That's definitely important, I would say. It's also really important to, I think, to collaborate, and also to use the experience and wisdom and talents of other people and listen to them. Listen to people who are experienced. I mean, get feedback. Open yourself up to feedback. I think at the beginning, it's very easy to get a false sense of grandeur and think that you're much better than you actually are. At least I feel that in music often. Because it's very exciting when you start making music and you realize, oh wow, I can do these things, and then suddenly you quite quickly think that you're really good. Wow, because you're aware of all the things that you're doing in the music and all the tricks. But with experience, I've come to realize more and more that that people underestimate. There's a lot of detail in the craft of making music that people don't really. That people underestimate, and experience counts hence for a lot when it comes to composition and music production, and that's why it's so important, especially when you're starting off, to have experienced people around you who can advise you, who can really hear the difference between your music and tracks that are out there, and point that no, but this is not the same. This is the reason this is so much better crafted, and there's so much more detail in this, to point those things kind of out, because I feel like I made that mistake often, that I just really, that I didn't realize myself what level I was really on.
In comparison to what you can still can do, how much you still have to learn, maybe
yes,
on the field.
Exactly. Exactly. There's a lot, because of course, as you learn at the beginning, you kind of you learn very quickly at the beginning. There's a lot, the gain that you make is very, very quick, but then gradually it becomes less and less. The top end, it's really more about, it's very small details that distinguish sometimes the best music and the best composers. But that's also people who are at that level. They also listen to music in that way with incredible attention to detail, and they can tell you why something is better mixed than something else, and why, and how far you still are away from perhaps that top tier of composers and music producers. So I think that's really important. So to sum up this advice, I guess, be humble and open yourself up to the experience and feedback of people around you. And also collaborate. If you know someone who's really great at piano playing and you are not, employ them, collaborate with them. Don't try to do everything yourself, because the best composers out there don't do that either. They always collaborate. Yeah.
I had a question about that. When you're composing a song or music, you record systematically the instruments, or also you can use pre-recorded versions of instruments. I don't know if you know what I mean. I mean, if you make a music, you systematically play the instruments and record them, or you can also use softwares with pre-recorded instruments that you can use on the music. Or you can do both, maybe.
Yeah, you can do both, absolutely. I usually, in most of my music, I use samples. So I play all the instruments, but using the MIDI keyboard, and then I layer them. On occasion, I will also perhaps use recorded phrases, but usually I program everything and all the melodies all by using MIDI. That's most of what I think. I would say 70% of all the work is doing that. But then if the budget allows, I will also then record instruments properly, and I will notate music and have musicians in the studio playing the music. And of course that's always the best if you can get that. It's always better than it's hard to get that level of expression and realism with samples, although people get very close these days. There's some very good sample software out there, and there's a lot you can do if you're good at production and MIDI programming.
Okay, so mainly you use the software with pre-recorded instruments, and if as you've said, if the budget allows, you can record live the instruments and then add them on the mix.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And about the instruments, mainly you use, I think the most common instruments, piano, guitar, or are there like some uncommon, particular maybe instruments that you like to use that you have already used on your tracks?
Yeah, I mean, there are some unusual. For example, in this soundtrack I did for Elite Dangerous, for example, we recorded the duduk. You know what it is? It's a Middle Eastern wind instrument. Looks a bit like an ocarina.
No, but I'm going to look it up after this podcast. There are many instruments actually. It's quite incredible. I went to a museum of instruments that there are like hundreds and thousands of different kind of instruments, and we forgot that sometimes. We forget that sometimes because we're only used to piano, guitar, etc. But it's quite incredible, like the amount of different instruments that you can use, and maybe it also brings something interesting to the track if you use something that is quite unusual, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, you're always looking for ways to make your soundtrack, have a unique voice and make it very distinct sounding, and using what people would call, I don't know, ethnic instruments or world instruments is definitely one way to do it. And there's some instruments that are not so common in the orchestra, but are still used quite a lot in film music. And the duk is actually one of those. That's quite. I think you'll recognize the sound when you hear it. It's a particular sound. Also, for example, the cymbalom, I would say, is not the most usual instrument when it comes to the classical, orchestra, but in film music, it's used quite a bit. It combines very well with the piano. You get a very specific sound. So I'd say there's a couple of instruments like that. But yes, I mean, when you dive into different cultures, it's incredible. There's so many different instruments, so many different variations of woodwinds, brass, very special instruments like the erhu. If you looking at trying to emulate Chinese music, so there's lots. And I do, so on occasion also try to find interesting instruments like that. Yeah.
And when you do a track for a film, what is the process of the creation of the track? I mean, do you talk on a regular basis with the directors to understand what is the feeling that they want to bring to the audience? What is the process that maybe you have that music producers have when it comes to finding the track that is relevant to the movie, to the film, and to the characters? Because what I really like about music in movies, that they bring emotions. Like it's when you see a movie, the soundtrack is very important to have the general feeling of the movie, of the film, because with no soundtracks, I think it's less impactful in terms of emotions and in terms of the feeling of and the understanding maybe of the characters of the story.
Of course. So yes, you it's a very much a collaboration, and I would say usually, I mean, depends a little bit on the time constraint of the project, but usually the director is there all along the way, and every track that you write and that you put in this film, he will be there and give feedback, and it's very much a discussion in terms of, yes, what are the emotions, what are the buttons you want to press. And sometimes you don't want to press any buttons. Actually, there's also a school of film music where you kind of leave it more open. There's a feeling and a kind of certain sense of something happening, but it's not necessarily determined. It can be quite ambiguous as well, and maybe that's the point as well. You don't want to say anything. You just want to give a kind of sense that something is going on, or without being too specific. And then sometimes you want to press very obvious buttons, and you want to make, you want to give the scene energy, and you want to, if it's an action scene, you want to just emphasize the rhythm and the kind of raw aggression, or it's a love scene and you want to highlight the beauty of the scene. So it can vary, but it's definitely, in my experience, mostly a very close collaboration with the director, and a lot of dialogue, just understanding what is it that they want to highlight in the story. What's the theme? Not every director is musical, although most directors I've worked with have a fairly good understanding of music. I think they tend to be quite interested in different art forms. But sometimes directors are not that musical, and so it's more about, rather than talking about in musical language, it's more about talking about the story and the characters, and then I will translate that into music and then play to him. Yeah.
So besides movies, games, there are maybe other things that you would like to do in the field of music, because you are also a sound designer, which means that you can also work maybe in the field on a movie set. Maybe, I don't know if this is something that can be of interest to you.
I've done that a little bit, and so I've done. I've been, for example, I've been a boom operator. I've done that. Partly just because I think it was interesting to see how that works. But it's not a career I would want. I think it doesn't have the same creative fulfillment. but it's interesting sometimes to just be on sets and see a little bit how it works. I think. Sound design I also enjoy, and it's interesting. I definitely will continue with that. But I think I'm more drawn towards the music in general. So yes, I don't think it would be a career. I think it'd be more something that on occasion I will do, or maybe as part of. I mean, sound design and music are also very related and or can be very intertwined, and it's hard to say sometimes what is music, what is sound, what's sound effects. And I think that's definitely a room that interests me. That's in between sound effect and music. There's some really interesting film composers out there that's also hard to define in that way. There's one called Mika Levy, a woman, a female composer from the UK. She is really interesting. Her soundtracks are very, very close to sound effects often. It's very synthesized and very, and it really stands out in the film. So you don't really know, what is this now? Is this a sound? Where does this come from? But it has very strong effects. So that interests me. Yeah.
The music composer of Game of Thrones also, I really like the soundtrack. Ramin Djawadi, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really liked him also. And working with singers, is that something that maybe can interest you, or a little bit less? Singers, you can also like work on the music, the beat, etc.
I mean, I've worked with singers on soundtracks, but then I'm using voice more as an instrument. I haven't really done songs like that. That would interest me because it's something I haven't really done before. It would be interesting to try that. I did actually just now. I wrote an operatic piece based on a Tim Burton poem. That was quite fun because Tim Burton, I mean, you know, his movies like, you know, Batman and Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands. He also writes poetry, and he has this whole collection of very weird, strange children poems. And so for my course here, I selected one, which is they're all quite quirky and funny. I selected one of his, and then I made it into a song. So that was kind of a bit like that. But I haven't written any pop music or anything like that. It would be fun to try, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Regarding songs, I think on my end, I think I would be interested in like writing the lyrics and the songs. So I don't know. I think it will be interesting experience, even though I'm not really on this field right now. But maybe one day it will be interesting to collaborate with a singer in the writing of a song, because you can put a lot of poetry in the songs, and it can be very beautiful. What else? It's a small island where you are right now. I think I looked it up in Google Maps before the call.
Yes, it is small. I don't know how many people live here. I could imagine I don't know, maybe it's 40,000, like that, something like that. But it's very popular in the summer. So you get a lot of, especially people from Stockholm come here and spend the summer here. And then it becomes a very different place. It becomes much more busy, and it becomes a bit of a party island. But yeah, there's 60,000 apparently living here, usually, but I think it becomes twice that in the summer.
Okay.
It's a beautiful little island.
Yeah, I think I would enjoy it being in an island because I really like nature. Maybe one day I'm going to go on an island. I don't know if you think about subjects that we didn't talk about so far, Erasmus, about maybe subjects that you want to talk about in this podcast?
I mean, what for you what's the underlying theme with your podcast? Is there a particular theme that you usually touch upon with everyone?
Yeah, I get that a lot because some podcasts are very focused on one subject, but as far as I'm concerned now, the podcast is kind of broad. I basically have different people from all walk of life, and we have discussions about what they do, because I am genuinely interested in several topics, and then then we share the interview.
Okay.
But I was thinking more about you, about the music composition. Maybe there are some aspects that we didn't discuss that you want to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I can. So
you can talk all day about.
Well, I mean, of course, but what is one thing actually which nowadays is becoming, I'm becoming more aware of it. So composers or music producers, it's one of the most oversubscribed jobs at the moment in Sweden. There's far too many who want to do this.
Oh, really?
Yes, I just had a look because I'm trying to help a friend deciding on a job, and he's also interested in music. And I told him, I mean, if you want a simple life and a guaranteed salary and job security and all that stuff, this is the worst you can choose in a way. Because there's this way too many people who want to do this thing, and a lot of them are really good as well. So even if you're a bit more established and you have managed to make a living of it, that's like myself, you're still constantly competing with those people for all the jobs, because they are willing to, they work for usually for less, because they really they're so keen to get into the industry. They got fresh ideas. They're using the latest software, the latest everything. Whereas when you're in a job like this, it's hard to keep up with it all the time. I mean, I do my best, but I also sometimes, after 8 hours of working, I don't want to find out what's the latest software. I mean, there's so much time, only so much time to do now.
And you're also used to working on the one specific software, so maybe it can be also very time consuming to try to master another software. And I don't know if it's a healthy way to see like other music composer as competition. They are competition, but I don't know if it's the proper mindset, because maybe if you think that you are good, that you can provide and have value to a company regarding the work that you do, you will be higher than the other people also can be hired. I don't know if it's the proper mindset, but I guess that you can always say that there is competition and high competition on any field.
I mean, ultimately, it's just a question of how many composers are there for how many jobs, and so, for example, it's very rare that a music job gets advertised. Right? It's very. I mean, I'm on a lot of different forums, and on occasion you'll get someone writing there. Oh yeah, we need a composer, and then you'll have 150 people replying and then saying, "Oh, with the show reels and so on." So I think that's that, and it's really It's really difficult to cut through that when there's so many people replying.
But just one remark: with this kind of job, you can also have jobs all around the world. I guess I don't know if you need to only look at the Swedish market regarding the job opportunities. Maybe you can also find jobs.
No, absolutely. You can find jobs wherever, but I would say there's practical limitations with that. Actually, you probably do have to speak the language of the of the production team and the director and so on. you do need to be able to communicate. So I can't really, I think it would be quite hard for me to get jobs in Asia, for example, or anywhere I don't speak the language and where English is not very common. So then you're looking at, I mean, Europe, I guess, but then maybe not everyone in Europe and in the States. I mean, myself, I'm looking at this definitely the States, but then it's not easy because of work visa reasons. It's not that easy to work for American company.
Even abroad, yeah.
It's not easy. I mean, and also, of course, they have a huge pool of talent as well. So for me, I'm looking at Sweden because it's local, and I can meet people face to face, and that helps me. And also, I can speak Swedish. And I'm looking, at the UK and maybe some other European countries, but it's not that easy. You're not as remote as maybe other jobs. It's not like programming, which is its own language. Language is a factor as well. But anyway, I think it's quite rare to get a job from an advert, from like a job announcement. Usually it's people that you know. Usually you go to the right school, you meet some director, you become collaborators, and then when the director makes a movie, he engages you, and then, it goes from there. All the famous, I would say, or a lot of the famous composers, that's how it happens. John Williams, started collaborating with Steven Spielberg, Danny Elfman and Tim Burton. Ludwig Göransson, and the guy who did Black Panther, whose name I forgot now. That's how it's, And then once you make a big film, of course, and break through, then it's a different story. Then you're a known entity. But that's not that many people in the composer's world. So
what's the strategy if you want to do a music soundtrack for a big Hollywood movie?
Yeah,
you need to have the contacts.
You need to have the contacts. I think so. Absolutely. It's about, I don't think there's any way around that. I think you have to.
But they're still looking for new, I think, fresh music composer every now and then, I think.
Oh yeah, of course. But I don't think, I mean, you usually have to have, I mean, I don't think you can break
reputation
into
maybe.
Or something on your portfolio. Yeah, I mean, it can go quickly if you do the right, attach yourself to the right projects. Like Christopher Nolan, he just made this one film and then suddenly, made Memento with Guy Pearce. I mean, it can go pretty quickly if you're, and I think for Ludwig Göransson also, though he was quite established because he was doing music for Childish Gambino, so I think he had quite a strong portfolio there. But
the end goal for every music composer is really to work on big projects, or you can also say that even if you work on a small project, you are still doing your passion, and
absolutely
it's still worth it in a sense, because this is what you wanted to do, even though there are not millions and millions of people watching the movies and listening to the soundtrack, but there are still people listening to what you do, and this is really it's an end in of itself, maybe.
Absolutely. I think that, I mean, for me as well, my ambition is not to work on big Hollywood movies just because they're big. I mean, I want to work on interesting projects and projects that are creatively interesting, where I believe in the movie as well. That's really important. It's so soul destroying. And I think maybe it hasn't been said, but like I can't stand working on a movie I don't believe in. And it has happened in the past, and that's really tough when you have to
like a movie you don't really like. It can be very difficult to find the inspiration, to find the motivation to do the soundtrack if you don't like the movie. But I guess in the beginning, some people will say, but you need the job, you need gigs to start. But I think the ideal situation is when you have the luxury of saying no to projects because you don't like them, and to focus on what you really like to do. But I think you really need to keep in mind that as long as you can make a living of your passion, it is still a very strong success, even though you are not making like soundtracks or projects that have high visibility worldwide and that that are seen or viewed by many people. I think that you still need to, everyone, I think that they need to have also this mindset, is that success can also be defined as doing what you do, and if you do doing what you want, if you do what you want, then it is already a success, I think.
I think so, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I think I certainly would not measure success by, you know, the audience, the number of audiences that see my things. No, success for me is, I mean, if you can make a living doing what you're passionate about, whatever it is, whether it's music or, you know, whatever you're passionate about, I think that's incredibly important, because we spend so much of our life working, and if it's just exchanging time for money, that's I think that's a pretty depressing thought. And I've tried it. I mean, I've done jobs where literally I don't enjoy it, and I just go in there and I'm giving 8 hours of my life just to get some money, and I'm not enjoying the process. That's kind of very sad. I don't think necessarily that you can be very passionate about music. I don't think you have to work in music and you know, I think I guess what I want to say is that there's other ways to, you know, you can pursue music in your free time as well and be very passionate there. You have not failed if you don't work with music. It's totally valid also to do as a career something completely different and focus your creative energy on music then outside of your career. In fact, there's advantages of doing that, I would say.
It depends, I think, on how strong your passion is, because if you enjoy music, but it is enough for you to just do music on your free time on the weekend, so it's perfectly fine to not do a career out of this passion. But if it's something that you really enjoy to do every day, then there's no other option, I would say, for you than to do what you love and to follow your passion. I think that it depends on people. Some people have a strong interest in one field, and so they know that this is what they want to do. Other people, they enjoy different topics and different subjects, but this is just something that they want to do, as I've said, on their free time, etc.
Yeah, what I would say, so the danger is a little bit there, just that that it can also change your attitude and your passion to music, doing it professionally. It sounds maybe like a cliche, but it is very true. Like for me, for example, now music is a job, and it means that, for example, that's actually outside of these 8 hours that I spend maybe working on it, I don't really want to listen to music. I've spent the whole day doing it. I come home, I just want silence. I don't enjoy music in that maybe the same kind of way than I used to. I don't listen to, because I used to listen to music. I would just sit there with my headphones on and just be absorbed. That would be enough. Nowadays, I don't have the patience for that anymore. And because I work with it, I spend the whole day working on music that I'm not necessarily that passionate about. I mean, I enjoy it, but it's maybe not the kind of music I would choose to write. And then I don't listen to listen anymore in the same way that I used to. So I think that's something to be aware of, just that when you're working on something professional, it will change your relationship with it. Very few are lucky enough to just take on projects that they always, that they feel passionate about. I think even the biggest composer guys sometimes just have to pay the bills, and then they have to take on projects that are just for money, and that's fine. But it's, as I said, there's a downside to that as well. If you keep it as a pure passion, as a hobby, in a way, I think at least there's less risk of spoiling it in a way, which can happen if you do it professionally. You can get as I said, like for me, I can get very fed up with things, and I can feel creatively exhausted as well, which is it's a strange thing. But there comes a time you don't have anything left. There's no more output. You need
Yeah,
to,
sometimes you need just to take a break for the
yes,
inspiration to come back
exactly.
after. And after you decided to quit your job at IBM, you didn't hesitate on other things. It was like clear for you that music was the thing that you wanted to do. There was like no other area or other things, yeah, that you wanted to do.
No, I think it was music. I think it
Yeah,
was very quickly, yeah, no, I got to do this. I got to give this a go. I felt like, I have a safety net. I have computer science. If I really, struggle, I can have it. I can find a job within that. But let's go for music now to see what we can do. And it was a long process. I mean, I started this journey, I think when I was 25 or 26, maybe even. And I mean, now I'm doing a master's at a conservatoire, but yeah, it took me, almost 15 years to get there. It was a long journey to actually, get to this level, because back then I would have never got into a conservatoire. I did a music degree, but at a very, I would say, a pretty low level course, just to kind of get into it and learn the basics. But it was a very simple and unchallenging course.
What was the reaction of your relatives when you said that you wanted to do music? Were they supportive, or I think maybe parents can be scared when their children tell them that they want to do something that can be very uncertain?
Of course. Yeah, it was different reactions. I mean, because I had the degree in computer science, my mother, at least, she was supportive. So, okay, yeah, try this now. You kind of you have a serious
Security,
degree.
yeah.
Exactly, security. I think my father and other people in the family, they didn't really take it very serious. They thought, okay, yeah, he's going to do that for 3 years and then get a real job. I think I think it was quite surprising to them that I'm now ended up working as a composer.
Yeah, 15 years now, right?
Yeah,
10 years,
exactly.
more than 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been, I don't think they would have expected that. I mean, I don't come from a particularly musical family, I have to say. So I'm a bit of an exception, I think, in my family.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that, yeah, it is very important to have a strong support system that can help you when you are down, when you don't have motivation, but you need to find those people. Sometimes you are lucky and they are in your family, but sometimes it can be friends or acquaintances or people that you meet along the way. But as I mentioned, I mean, reading books, I think that it is very, some books are very valuable, I think, in acquiring wisdom and the knowledge about the field that you want to pursue. I don't know if many music composers write books. Maybe reading a book, an autobiography about a music composer can be very interesting for young music composer, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, absolutely. I mean, definitely. I'm just thinking myself what I got inspired by, for example. I mean, because it can be quite intimidating at the same time. When you hear that all these guys who go, they go to these like really good schools and learn piano all their life. But there are some examples of people that are not like that at all. I mean, Hans Zimmer is, that's also what makes him special. He didn't go to music school. He can hardly play piano, but he had a passion. He was very good at networking, and he made a lot of contacts. And he has a natural, ability to understand what works with movies, and then also developed his own way of doing things, which now has become such a standard, such a template of the strings and the big drums and the brass chords. I mean, he is one of the main forces behind this style. He managed to kind of bring pop aesthetic and pop ideas into the orchestra, and then show how that it can be very effective for film music. He created these his style, which has now been copied a lot. So I think it's quite inspirational to kind of see how a guy like that, you know, from a complete pop background can end up in film music. And I think reading about other composers and taking advice on board is really important. And YouTube is a infinite resource, and it's also for me, it's been very useful to have. You know, there's so many tutorials, so many reviews of software, lessons that you can learn, music theory lessons. I mean, it's all there really. It's really great what you can teach yourself these days.
You only need time, and time.
Yes,
you need time,
yes.
and you need
focus.
time. And focus, exactly. And yes, the topic of networking is really something that comes up a lot on my interviews and on my discussions. What is your take on networking? It's like before COVID, I mean, you go to specific networking events. What is your intake or your perspective on networking?
I mean, so yes, as everyone says, networking is extremely important, especially in the professional world. And it's not just about networking with clients; it's also about networking with other musicians. Because I mean, I know this for myself. I often get too much work, and then I need help, and I need to know who can help me in what capacity. So people that got to know me through networking, you know, they'll be first in line to maybe get a job, and I say, no, can you take over this thing? So yeah, so it's important to network with other musicians as well and create a network of people that can help you, but then maybe you can also help them, and that can mean jobs. And I would say, yes, I think it's great to, I mean, definitely, of course, go to film conferences, I think is great. Start network with people who maybe not so established, because often the established filmmakers also already have their go-to guys when it comes to music. But people are starting, showing promise and just starting out in the industry as filmmakers. They're good contacts, and you can find them if you go to film festivals where new work is being shown. That's why I like to network often with in terms of films. At university, network with, for example, up-and-coming game designers, people studying game design. Just contact them and see if they probably don't have anyone. They usually at that stage they don't think about music even. So just ask them, yeah, I can make some music for you. And if your game, becomes successful, let's do it properly with a budget. So I think catching people early onwards as well, and rather than trying, I mean, I'm not going to try and network with Hans Zimmer now, unless
I think, even though he might not be maybe reachable, but I mean, you can still try, and maybe it can work. You never know that if it comes from a genuine place. I think that you can talk to anybody. I mean, I don't really believe in. I know that he's very famous, and he can be sometimes unreachable, but you never know, I would say.
You never know, but I would probably rather put that energy into people who are not surrounded and bombarded. I mean, I just imagine how many emails he must get. I mean, if the opportunity comes, of course, if I happen to get a chance to meet him in person, and there's like a natural way in, but I think coming from the outside like this, I think is rarely effective. It's much better to meet people than in a more natural way, and that is often at university, of course, at schools, doing projects on the side. Or as I said, yeah, if you want to connect to people that you maybe don't know and you just want to write them an email, then often you have to aim for less established but promising filmmakers. And that's also maybe an advice I can give in general in the industry is choose the right cue to stand in line for, if that makes sense. And for example, I would say the cue, for Hans Zimmer's job when he eventually maybe, you know, stops his career and who's going to be the next Hans Zimmer, that queue is a very long queue. There's a lot of people queuing there. I wanted to be doing his thing and his style. But there's maybe a very short queue, you know, in a different market for maybe for more artistic documentaries, or those queues I think are much shorter. So do you want to yeah, what's more likely, and where do you want to put your energy? Do you want to put your energy into something where you're, you know, where you might succeed, but it's very hard and more likely, or do you want to choose something where there's more of a chance and you could have more impact in that particular niche? So I think that's also important, that, and I feel often that people that approach me sometimes as well. I get sometimes emails also by people who are just blasting out emails and trying to get in. I think that's yes, what I feel a little bit is like they're not trying to find their niche. They're trying to just like they're just queuing at the most obvious cues, and those are just usually, you know, there's big lines of people waiting there. In an industry that is so oversaturated of composers, I think it's good to be to kind of be a little bit strategic. Where could I come in? Like, what can I offer? What's the cue for me? I'm really good at this particular thing. Where's that needed? Rather than, okay, I want to be a big Hollywood composer, I'm going to go in this queue because that's the obvious line, and it's very hard. But maybe I'm sounding more pessimistic. And I think, you know, there's other people who maybe would just say, yeah, just follow your dreams and you succeed. But in my experience, being quite strategic in a way and niching myself and has helped me in my career at least, and has helped me to get to this stage. So that's the only wisdom I can pass on. If I can't say in good faith, yeah, as long as, you know, as long as you dream hard enough, you're going to get there, because in many cases that's not the case. Most of my fellow students, for example, from the music degree, none of them are working in music now, because it is very tough. It is very hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What are they doing now? They're still in the music field, or they're really doing something completely different?
Yeah, someone in the music field, like working maybe, for example, as music sourcer. So they help music libraries to source music. One guy is a programmer for Novation, so he's doing programming but for music software. Others have completely reschooled and are accountants now. One girl for a while was a touring musician, but now also is working I think in an office job. So but I don't think anyone is working as a composer. Well, actually that's not true. I have one friend from that course who is still half working as a function band and half as a composer. But most are not doing that. It's just very tough.
I know someone that did studies on art history, and almost at the end of her studies, she realized that it's very difficult to get a job. So she decided to change completely what she is doing. She started studying on environmental impacts. And so it shows that sometimes some people are realistic about the need on the market, and they decide to change because they don't have maybe the energy to find a job in a field that is very competitive, in a field that is has less opportunities than in another field. And it was the case of this person that I know. And you can say that it can be a bit sad, because at the beginning, this is what she wanted to do. She wanted to study and to work afterward in the field of art history. But now she just wanted to have a job and to not be stressed every week, every month about finding a job or making a living out of what she loves. I think it depends on people, and you can still maybe do it a little bit after. It's actually it's quite similar. I mean, not similar to yours, but for instance, you decided to make music after having a security, and maybe for her it will be the same. After she has a security, she will be more confident in doing something that is more risky than what she is doing now.
Exactly, and then maybe also, I mean, if you have financial security, it takes so much pressure off, you know, also of the career. I mean, sorry. So if you have financial security and you want to make music, yeah, I mean, if you don't have to make a big living out of it, it takes so much pressure off then, and then you can really just select, you know. There's a lot of Kickstarter films being made. There's a lot of amateur or up-and-coming filmmakers, and then there's plenty of opportunity to make music. I think the problem is just if you want to do it as a career and you want to need a certain income from it, it is a different thing. It's a different. It's different in terms of like what jobs you have to take, even though you don't maybe really are that interested creatively, and just in terms of the pressure as well. Because imagine this, I mean, when you're passionate about something like music, and then you make it, and then someone judges you, judges your music because they're the director, and of course they make the decision. They have to make sure it's good. That's something that's also very hard to learn in a way. Because it feels like someone, it's something that you really put out there. It's something that you feel.
Yeah, you take it personally, maybe.
Yeah. And that's something you have to really learn very quickly, not to take it personally. Otherwise, it can destroy you. I mean, I had to kill my darlings and have tracks rejected, and it's tough. And I thought I was good, but sometimes even I still these days can be what. It's so why are you not accepting this track? It's so and to deal with that.
And also it depends on the people who is listening to the track. I would say it doesn't necessarily mean that the work that you put into the track is not interesting. I think also it depends on the people, on the client.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, Hans, definitely that's on occasion clients have got it wrong, and I can say that because tracks, for example, that they maybe didn't want in the beginning, then did get included, and they become some of the most popular tracks. That can happen, and I think that's a sign that they just get it right. But sometimes also I definitely got it wrong when I listen to music. Sometimes years later, I go, oh God, no, okay, that wasn't good. So it's
yeah. There's an interesting question when it comes to making a track. Do you make a track for yourself, or do you make a track for other people? I mean, if the track that you make, you really like it, you are really proud of it, you hope that other people will like it, but you never know. But what is the mindset when it comes to making a track? Because you want the track to be liked by a majority of people, but at the same time, you don't want to lose yourself in the process and in doing that.
I think these days I definitely make tracks for other people and for other purposes. I find it very hard, and I've always found it hard just to write music for myself. I don't really know even what that really means, because I don't get inspired by just my life or by my existence. I need things to write for. I need a film. I need a game. I need something that I go, okay, how can I make music for this thing? And this has always been my mindset, and I guess that's why I'm a film composer and not a art music composer or a pop producer. I need a story. I need something to write for. So in my case, I think I'm always writing for an audience. I don't really write for myself. I do on occasion, I like to kind of play piano and kind of improvise, and that's, I think, as close as I get to making music for myself, and that becomes like a meditative thing. I have that, but I don't. Yeah, it's just that, I think. Otherwise, when I'm sitting down for 8 hours a day and I'm writing and producing, it's a job, and it's for other people, I would say, to sell it. Yeah, I should say actually that we should probably wrap up pretty soon.
Yes, I was exactly about to say the same thing. It's been almost an hour, and so yeah, it was very quick. I don't know if you want to add something before the end of the podcast. We talked about many subjects.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. It's always interesting to verbalize these thoughts, and I think I'm coming out of it also, maybe with a new perspective a little bit, and some questions you've asked me I haven't thought about for a while. So it's good to kind of engage with that again, and I hope that I've given some useful answers, and maybe also some tips to people. I think as I said, I tend to be a little bit on the cynical side of things, or on the kind of cold strategic side of things, because it's helped me myself in being able to get a career. But there are many different paths into this industry, and so I can only give my experience. But in any case, hope that's been interesting and useful.
Yes, just very interesting. Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you for your time. It was my pleasure, and thank you very much, Erasmus. And let's keep in touch, and maybe we can have another episode and another talk a little bit further on your path to see what you are up to and what kind of project you are doing. But thanks again for accepting my invitation, and take care.
You too. All the best.